Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. Here's one of my favorite little stories. I've taken it to heart. I put this in practice in my life, and I hope you do too. It's called the mayonnaise jar and the 2 cups of coffee. When things in your life seem too much to handle, when 24 hours in a day is just not enough, just remember the mayonnaise jar and the 2 cups of coffee. A professor stood before his philosophy class and had some items in front of him. When the class began, wordlessly, he picked up the very large and empty mayonnaise jar and proceeded to fill it with golf balls. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed it was. The professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar and then shook the jar lightly. The pebbles rolled into the open areas between the golf balls. He then asked the students, well, is the jar full? They agreed it was. The professor next picks up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. And then asked the students once again, is the jar full? The students responded with unanimous yes. The professor then produced 2 cups of coffee from underneath the table and poured the entire contents into the jar. Now, said the professor as the laughter subsided, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The golf balls are the important things. Your God, your family, your children, your health, your friends, and your favorite passions. Things that if everything else was lost, and only they remain, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life. Your house, your job, your car. And the sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand in the jar first, there's no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you never have room for the things that are important to you. Pay attention to things that are critical to your happiness. Play with your kids. Get medical checkups. Take your partner out to dinner. Play another 18 holes of golf. There'll always be time to clean the house and fix the disposal. Take care of the golf balls first, things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand. One of the students raised their hand and inquired, what did the coffee represent? The professor smiled and says, I'm glad you asked. It just goes to show you that no matter how full your life is, no matter how full it may seem, there's always room for a couple of cups of coffee with a close friend. So, lead by example. Ask people out for a cup of joe. All right, so where we are today. My journaling question for you is, if you're going to continue to grow, how do you transcend your day-to-day life through the mundane realities that will evoke something else? This is your line of connection. It's also the lure of your own spiritual vitality. Now, my affirmation teachers point out that most people beat the drum of what they don't want in their life. And maybe if you did that before this moment, you didn't know that, but now you do. You have to have a vibrational alignment with your own well-being, because that's what the point of attraction is in your life. And the point of attraction is always the now moment. So give your attention to where you're going, take your attention away from where you've been, and continue to realize you're the happiest when you're in love, joy, and appreciation. Because what's life-giving in any moment never ceases to yield the best. Now, sometimes we're in situations where we don't see the light. One of my teachers Ram Dass used to give the image, because he was a pilot, that when you're flying below the clouds, sometimes everything looks gray. But if you rise above the clouds, all of a sudden you realize the sun is shining and always has been. And you remember that when you dip back down underneath the clouds and get into that moment where you believe the sun doesn't exist or there's no light. It's always there shining. So you got to listen to your heart and trust your connection to this. And ultimately, you got to take a risk. Say, like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. But there's no earth. So go into the free fall and dig it as much as you can. All right. As for my yoga friends out there, what I want to say is, it's idiotic to say, maybe if I don't do the pose, it'll get better. Ain't gonna work. I think that trying is fun. I think it's fun to do this. So you have to learn to work smarter and subtler, not just harder, and deal in those accessory muscles that you don't normally use. And this is a metaphor for finding those little things in life that aren't on the main stage, but yet they make up so much of what we actually do or appear to do in the world. Also, always telling you about the joy of movement. I use yoga as the metaphor, but it could be anything. But the whole idea is there are so many people that are estranged from their own body, estranged from their own deep nature, and they're hung up with like neck tension, like a noose. This is what you got to open up. This is where you got to open up. And even if right now it seems like nothing is happening, remember the metaphor. You are collecting nutriment like a barren tree in the winter. It looks inelegant, but it's getting ready for the regeneration of what's going to happen in the spring. So don't give up on yourself when things seem like you're hit the hardest. Don't quit.